Hello, everyone. Hello, Aki. I'm so happy and glad and proud to have you here. Today, we made it finally after the daily movements. So I really admire, respect, and I'm interested in your work, and that's why I'm super happy that you're here. So thank you for accepting.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Before we dive into all the wisdoms that you will share with us today, I would like to have kind of a grounding or a landing practice so we can all be focused for the conversation, if that's okay.
Great. So this is for people who are looking at the screen, yes? Yeah, so hello everybody. So you're looking at the screen. So there's something about the looking at the screen has this, what I call a kind of sagittal relationship and also more frontal kind of relationship with it. So we're just gonna say we have a freedom, the rule to be free. So something, just to allow yourself just to really turn your head literally around, turn your body away from the screen and to see the room maybe you're in, if that feels comfortable for you. Just moving your neck. So I see my windows and I see my doors and the bookshelves and the floor, ceiling. Good. Or you can even just turn your body around and away from the screen sometimes. I've got this swivel chair with a cushion, as you can see. So you're not really stuck in this way. Or even when you're feeling, sometimes remember to just have a little bit of space behind your head open up. So give yourself a moment to really feel that, what is it like for you to feel the space behind your head opening up? Yeah. Good. Yeah, I see your breath change.
Definitely.
I notice my own breath changes when I feel that. So instead of grasping the information, we can just kind of take in, receive the information, not just from the head, but listening from all of you. Good.
Systems that we are. Yeah, I could really feel like I could rely onto like an imaginary cushion or something, like, oh yeah, I can just settle back and I'm fine, like I'm safe, kind of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
And it also works if you're just listening to it, because it's sound, but it's not the same kind of vision, screen to eye, but it's also just sometimes stopping the sound and entering into silence or orienting yourself always works, actually. So either listening or watching.
Great. Yeah, no, I agree. And just literally just moving your body, shake it, anything, so that we don't become a bit kind of static. And one of my teachers speak about, when we are listening to some information, especially when we are studying, we tend to kind of trying to grasp the information. I remember the time when I was really like that. I can be like that still, but a lot less. And really grasping with the frontal brain, but just especially something to do with a body, mind and a body, our being. And then it's actually really helpful not to grasp, but just allow, receiving from, back brain or.
Wow. The difference is just huge. Like I can feel resistance or kind of forcing, like I want it, I want to learn, I want to understand. Like I can remember myself as well, like studying at university, like writing everything down, like kind of in hurry or urgency. And when you said receiving, I was like, oh yeah, there's nothing to do. Like there's just opening, and then it comes in, and allowing it to come in. It's so different.
Yeah, the tone changes, the posture changes, and kind of more fronted to a little bit more balanced, and kind of being kind to the part that feels like we have to go and grasp, and I think I was just doing my best in those days. But I can really remember like just so, grasping, just so. But I think it, we take time to get used to with trusting a little bit, we already know. And what was helpful, for me to hear when I was in those days, I guess, in one of those days when I was really graspy, for another tutor to say, like, just remember that, you will retain the information you need to retain.
That comes back to the trusting as well.
Yeah.
Like, just take it what you're ready for right now, and anything else you can leave it aside, and there's nothing to push or to force, or nothing else to be or to do.
Yeah. And I think, the exam culture maybe, or might not necessarily, for the exam, you might have to kind of go and grasp or something. But, those information I tend to forget.
Definitely. Crazy, right? How, like, the amount of information that we can forget, like, you've got the exam, then you just don't have it in your brain. Like, it's just deleted from one second to another. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I guess because it doesn't come from like a place of openness and security and freedom as well, to learn what you're really willing to learn and interested in. And it's more like a pressure to be validated, because, well, in that system we need to have the grade and to have the diploma. Well, that's okay, that's the way it is. But yeah, it's not the same, like, now that I quit it, and maybe you share the same, but like, I quitted that system and I'm just learning for myself, or to teach then at least. And I'm like, well, I'm just absorbing so many information that I now kind of find a place and a space for. Whereas before I was just kind of in the frontal space, like having them here, but then disappeared. So different.
Yeah. And I think then the couple of things that came to me as I was listening to you and, resonating, and, when we are grasping, have to get, and that's usually that kind of exam culture as well, kind of rooted a little bit in lack,
Yeah.
So I have to fill this void, or lack or something, and then going forward. That's one thing that kind of came to me. And also another thing that came to me is that there is a time, body time is really different from kind of head time. Body needs a time to really absorb and then integrate somehow.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of Shavasana.
Yeah. yeah.
Shavasana is challenging, but
it is. Yeah.
When you actually drop the initial sort of like an agitation or something, and then some of us probably take longer to really drop into the place of Shavasana, unless you've done lots of chaturanga and
you're just sleeping and collapsing on the floor.
But once you kind of drop into it, just you kind of go, oh, why don't we give ourselves more of this?
Yeah. Definitely. I have a friend of mine who is a naturopath, and she was taking the example of, these kind of batteries that are just flat, and you put your phone on the top of it, and you leave your phone, and by magnetism, you charge it. And she was like, when you're just laying on the sand on your summer vacation, that's the same process. You're just recharging your battery, and your adrenals are just pumping energy from the earth, from the floor, and it's just grounding you and nurturing you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I felt so inspired. I was like, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm recharging, babe. Like, it's okay for me to lay down.
Yeah. I mean, just putting those images together. Yes. No, I know what you mean. That's great.
Yeah. Well, talking about interests and kind of urges and inspirations, what are yours these days? Is there something specific that you're curious about, or?
Yes, currently I'm really shifting my work. the balance of my work to the therapeutic work more. I mean, I'm remaining as an educator, you know. I thought maybe I just do a lot less, but no, I am an educator in a way. So that remains, you know, the movement, touch, and exploration, body mind centering, somatic work, you know, that remains there. But I'm also developing or expanding my therapeutic work. You know, it's interesting. I do this with a proportion with my hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my commitments, more and more kind of clear commitments to working through early trauma.
Mm.
So, you know, that's just two words, early trauma, but the process of that, you know, is many.
Mm.
And the content, and also my background, experience and knowledge, and also my own personal, you know, processes that I have gone through and are still going through, you know, are all involved in that. So I don't know if it's specific enough, but my current thing is
focus.
to
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's interesting because I had that question. I can personally see a lot of commonalities between yoga, like this idea of wholeness and being with, and traumatic therapy, and even trauma-informed yoga in itself, because unfortunately many classes aren't trauma-informed, but that's another topic. But I can really see common points even in, for example, this dual awareness, like both and, or pendulating, or simply acknowledging what is present here and now, and diving into this kind of hypnotic state that yoga offers. And sometimes memories or movement can arise if it's allowed in the class setting. And I can really feel that's, for me, it's not the same, because I can't really say that yoga is a therapy in itself, but it has therapeutic benefits for sure, and specifically early trauma therapy for me, because it's non-verbal. So I'm like, well, it's all about yoga. We don't need to talk to access that and to explore these deep layers. And I wish every yoga teacher would be trauma informed. That's my utopia, my desire, because I can really see a common ground, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting area and development, because you know, yoga teacher cannot be everything, right?
Definitely.
But I find that, you know, yoga, whether it's yoga or somatic movement or anything, you know, I mean, I feel there was a lot of benefit, you know, for my trauma through yoga. And again, Shavasana really helped. And there's something about going through the postures, and it touched things, the breathing, and, you know, all of those things. And I don't actually know too well, Elisa, about trauma-informed yoga. I did not really step into, because I was doing my own trauma training and experiences elsewhere. And so integration happens kind of in my own way. But my sense is that unless the person is really, you know, whoever is facilitating or teaching, you know, have their own experience of, you know, the small or large, you know, it would be difficult to do the trauma-informed yoga thing. It's not something that to do, you know, just something of the kind of empathy. And what I'm trying to say is not so much about the trauma-informed yoga, because I don't know well enough to really speak specifically about it. But I think what it is there's a holding for things that arise. So I felt when I started, you know, back in 80s and 90s, you know, the practice, and there was a kind of mellowness around the yoga also, but also you have to seek to find the yoga classes or yoga teachers and then do it in somebody's flat, because there weren't yoga centers, you know, unless you go to maybe Shivananda Center, or I'm speaking about London, but Shivananda Center or Iyengar Institute or something like that, but there wasn't. but there was something about like a time for Shavasana, at least in my practice, and the things come up, or like they're taking time in Paschimottanasana. And I had a lot of release with Paschimottanasana because I was so flexible, flat as a pancake, but I could not stay. And there's something happened, I could not stay, I had to jump out. And then me and this teacher, had a chat about it, an agreement. Okay, so the next class, when we go in, you stay. So I stayed, and then when I stayed there was a lot of imageries kind of came out, and then there was, I wept, but there was a space in the practice, the space for somebody to weep, or somebody to go into their child pose, to calm down, or, it was somehow held in that sort of space. And then that kind of process can happen. And then as the yoga got bigger and bigger and bigger, and a bit more business, and okay, yoga classes got from 2 hours to an hour and a half to an hour to now 45 minutes lunchtime class in and out. While everything has a benefit, not doing something is probably better than not moving at all. At the same time, so the next class is waiting. Or, you're a great teacher because your class is popular, that kind of popularism sort of thing. And so I felt that less and less people are able to just have that kind of release in a class, and there's not enough safety, it's kind of felt sense of kind of safety in the space too. So they just kind of suck it up again. So something losing to suck it up. And the somatic movement work as well, I had a lot of trauma, Elisa, just so much of it, in a way that I didn't know what I was experiencing. And in some places, where there was facilitator just gave me that space, or was somehow validated, or kind of contained, gently contained. And then I was able to be with what was happening. So that's the kind of thing that just came to me, just allowing that space. So, and also if you, as we are speaking in terms of the context of yoga and the yoga teachers see this, then you don't really have to be the person to accompany the whole journey of each person. And if you want to do that, you need to go and really train as some kind of therapeutic modalities to equip yourself for that. But if it is not what you wish, and I don't think every single yoga teacher needs to be that, but then ready to refer, or ready to just allow, or ready to really allow that space, the supporting that kind of safety of that, precious process, but also boundaried. To send that person on, or you might have a referral list, or just, the boundaries. So, yeah. I just kind of went on it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. What I hear is really about the presence, like the human competencies in a way of the teacher that are really helping or allowing the natural processing of the human being, the student, to happen. And it's not all about like the skills, and sometimes we need to stay in our scope. And even for therapy, I guess, like I'm not a certified therapist, so I can't talk for something that I don't do, but I can imagine as a client myself, I don't really care about what modality they are interested in. What I really value is their presence and the way I feel with them. Like, do I feel regulated when I'm in that space, or even in Zoom, or how do I feel? Do I feel received? Do I feel seen? Or do I feel judged or triggered? Or what's going on in the human relationship? And that's what I hear in what you said. Like, not every yoga teacher can be everything, and thank God, like there is a space for everyone. But really focusing on that aspect of having a space and willing to have a space in which everyone is welcome in their emotion, in their rhythm as well in their process. Yeah.
Yeah, and the yoga teacher themselves also not putting too much pressure on themselves in a way that, you know, oh, somebody's crying. I feel a little bit like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit like that. And then you don't need to feel the pressure not to feel this or hide it or anything.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I feel a little bit activated, or I feel a little bit, oh, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe panic, maybe whatever.
Yeah. Then that's okay, but just you can acknowledge that in yourself, and then you can also, that gives it also the space. You know, it's not maybe as simple as that, but maybe it is as simple as that. When you're feeling the pressure and then I have to do something, maybe you don't.
Yeah, and both are okay. Like there's nothing, as we said at the very beginning, for this kind of part who's willing and wishing to grasp because it has its purpose. And same for here, like, are you witnessing that a part of you is willing to fix somebody because you see them crying, or are you panicking? And well, if it's present, that's yoga, that's being with and gathering. And
how am I doing? You know, that question. Okay, as a teacher, is that how am I doing? Okay.
Yeah.
And then just allow that person just to also be that. And yeah, so just watching out for the pressure, you know, we might as the yoga teachers, and it's okay to feel the pressure, but also you don't really have to feel the pressure.
Definitely. That's exactly where I see the commonalities between, for example, somatic experiencing, which I'm highly interested in, and what I can offer in my yoga classes. Like, what's here? What's present? Are you judging yourself? Okay. You're judging yourself to judge yourself? Okay. Like, it's just an experiment. You're experiencing a human condition and you can see that. You're aware of that. Well, that's fine. That's okay. And I'm here with you. And the group is here with you if it's safe for you, and you can orient yourself as we did at the beginning. And that's profound for me. I'm happy that you bring that up. Yeah, definitely. First, I have to say that your website is super gorgeous, and I felt a lot of harmony and beauty, really deep beauty. So yeah, thank you for sharing your website. It's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's luck for me.
Yeah, yeah, the photographs and the movements, and I felt a lot of fluidity. So
yeah, I had two wonderful people. You know, I did a project with a photographer called Lenka, and she saw I was just doing something, you know, in Instagram with my hair, you know, which was really long, and I want to do something with you. So we just came up with ideas. I said, I want to do the photograph of the movements, you know, the emotion, not like kind of posed, you know, photograph. So we did a kind of an artistic exchange. So I had a whole set of photographs that was really beautiful. And then one of my friend, and this also who used to come to, you know, my classes, and they said, let me give you, you know, let me offer you a gift. Let me design your website.
Wow, beautiful. Well, shout out.
So that was just two very lucky things, the lucky people, you know, people who brought luck, you know, the beautiful things to my life. So I was really grateful. Created the website, and then now I just do the updates.
Well, receiving that.
Yeah, there's something of the fact that the one person photographer knew me from my movement, and then the other person also knew me as a mover, and I guess my teaching and my style, my approach. So there was a wonderful sense of being seen by this creator, you know, the creator of my website. I didn't have to explain who I was. And the only thing I brought in was, you know, what is the image that you have? You know, he wanted to do this branding thing. And I was like, yeah. And so I have this image, which is a little bit of the image that's in the website here and there, and it's in my emails and things, but it's the a germinating seed in a tube that comes actually from originally comes from Vanda Scaravelli's yoga book called was it called A Finding the Spine? I feel terrible if I misquoted her book, but she only published one book. But in that, there was an experiment that's done, decades ago with a scientist. So just the nature. So when you put the seed in obstacles, like in a tube.
No light? Yeah.
So when it germinates, when it shoots, the root is always find a way, whatever the way, towards the ground. So there's kind of negative process or something like that. It's in my website, it's written. And then the shoot would look for the sun.
Oh, well, yeah, they know their direction. It's innate.
That's the nature, yes, that's the nature of it. And also the coming to, I'm a trained, certified NAM practitioner. NAM is a neuroaffective relational model, the early trauma work. And the founder of NAM, Larry Heller, Dr. Lawrence Heller, also used similar piece of writing that I resonated deeply. So whatever has happened, in your life, how much trauma you might have experienced, everything, but the life force, the nature, always if you're given environment, always move towards health and connection. Like, the plant is always looking to move towards the sun. So it's just combining that and the somatic movement work is the model of health. So there's something about giving the right environment, cells will do what they know the best, innate, the life force, move towards the health, which is the sun and the earth, or whatever it is in the human development, the rooting, grounding, and towards also the space. And this is something about the center, and it's relational, so just all of those things. So I had show the image of the from the Banda's book, it's like a little tube, and so I just showed him, this is something I have always strived for, and inspired me, my own personal process, but inspired me to work as both as a teacher, facilitator, trainer, and therapist. So he had his friends to redesign, and a really just simple kind of writing. So it's kind of humble and simple, drawing that, people might not necessarily stop and look and pay attention, but there's a section in my website that how life moves.
I didn't myself realize how meaningful it was for your own process and on your journey as well. So thank you. So poetic. I find him very poetic and like hopeful as well. And
and it is hopeful, and also it is a reality.
The condition, like we said about the yoga settings, like you can be who you are if the environment and the facilitator facilitates, actually, literally, an environment, a space that is kind of healthy for you, or that your system perceives as healthy, then you will thrive. That's part of your journey, like in your nature, you're wired to thrive. So like, don't worry.
So we can trust in that, we're wired that way. So really, trusting in that innate, but that might be really hidden, like lots of, like you said, the conditions and the life messages that, the life environment might have kind of given you. And so we kind of manage life like that. But then even within that, we are there to survive. The survive. So that means we are, that's a kind of slightly distorted, but still the life force is kind of moving through. So not kind of, blaming or judging any of those things. I think that's what you're saying, you know, any of those things, but keep finding that in a place where the healthy action is really happening without kind of judging any strategies or thing or any resistance because there's a fear around it, but because that's really saving life, your life, you know, in that, you know, just finding, you know, where there's that kind of ease and then sometimes, you know, the plants really come through like some kind of hard surface, doesn't it, as well? So there's something about the expression of, like, you know, healthy aggression as a part of their life force. It really has an immense kind of relationship, you know, with, you know, say things like a depression and dissociation, with all of those things. And, you know, the chick, like little chick, you know, they break through the shell. If they couldn't break through the shell to come out of the shell, they're not going to live. But that breaking through the shell, that's a kind of sense of the life force.
Beautiful.
You know, that's a healthy aggression to come through, part of the healthy aggression to really come through the life force expression. And the human, you know, we don't necessarily have the shells around, but, you know, there's something of the, you know, birthing process. And if the birthing process or something else, you know, maybe after birth even, it felt like not breaking through the shell with the autonomy and the expression life force, then appeared to be safe an option for one to survival.
Definitely.
We have inhibited that part, but that energy is never really expressed. So that's also another journey, I think.
That's the material that we can use then. Like here again, like if you become aware of that, like, oh, I've been quote unquote stuck, or I felt stuck in that rage or anger that I didn't express, then it's here. Then you can feel it, then you can do something about it. But if you push it aside or try not to see it like good vibes only, like this kind of myth and legends, like, well, there is wisdom in triggers, like in judgment, there is wisdom in it. There is a lot of growth coming from our shadows in a way. So it's also part of who we are, and we can't keep fragmenting in ourselves if we want to just journey back home to wholeness, which is who we are, and like this beautiful seed who I don't know, but who will always find its way to thriving and surviving and growth. It is, period. It's what we are meant to, and that's a beautiful and important reminder.
Yeah, I think, you know, for the parts of that, you know, it needs either support, guidance, accompaniment, you know, accompaniment and a witness, and you know, the yoga might be one thing, and therapy might be, and other things might be, and in that, you know, the process. And, you know, while I feel especially living in England, you know, and also my own heritage of being, you know, the Japanese as well, you know, the niceness and the politeness that are really overrated in some cultures. And but, you know, the culture in itself, you know, within itself, and it works, you know, because everybody's kind of operating with the same sort of thing. But then, you know, what you have to read into, and what you, at the cost of being nice for the sake of being polite and nice, you know, that's really overrated. And but at the same time, you know, that, like you were saying earlier, it's okay, you know, just only good things, and, you know, there's a reason we do that, you know. So just what is this action? What is that? What's serving?
Yeah, what's the need? What the need underneath that? What's the strategy serving?
Like this. What is this action is really helping, and then we can really understand what is that we felt like we had to protect.
Definitely, yeah.
And then we can really drop into that, like you know, I really had to do that. just to feel that, and then, you know, there's a kind of process.
The acknowledgement, yeah. It's always useful, whatever the strategy is, whatever the emotion or the dis-ease and the process. You may have heard about Dr. Gabor Mate, who talks a lot about disease, and he always says, like, we don't have diabetes or whatever, like our body is processing that symptom because it has something to tell us. And if we keep using words like I have this, or I kind of fragmenting again or bridging something far from us, then it's kind of not acknowledging that we are intelligent. We are so intelligent and brilliant, and depression or anxiety, whatever arises, it has a reason, and let's find resources in ourselves and in the environment. As you said, a therapist that's their role. I mean, you are here to facilitate that space. So let's find resources to really acknowledge the beautiful strategies, even if they are challenging. And I mean, it's not fun to be sick, for sure. And I'm not encouraging anyone to be sick in order to taste that. But if it's the case, if you feel any discomfort, then let's learn about it. Let's see it instead of trying to push it away or judge yourself for having or feeling that.
Yeah. Then, you know, while we're appreciating that, you know, strategies for saving life, and so that part is because, you know, every part of us has a best interest, even seemingly self-destructive actions, you know. There's something of then, you know, that kind of splitting, you know, of the parts. So when we choose to be, say, polite to say this, but then betray that true part of us, and then that part goes underneath, you know, like going out of the screen. So this is kind of my life.
What you want to show
underneath the screen.
Yeah, the truth is there, but we won't show it. Yeah, because
and then they're not gone, you know, like what Government is saying, you know, how it's beginning to show in the symptoms and, you know, the disease and everything, you know, maybe, you know, because they would, from underneath us, they would really control you, you know. If it's not acknowledged, then it feels really kind of out of control, because that's still trying to have it say, and then if it doesn't have anywhere to go, beginning to show in the body. And there's a really interesting notion in body mind centering about, say, the immune system. There's something about the part of the immune system. This is the heart of it is what is me, what is not me.
Judging.
What is me and what is not me. It's just that because the immune system, the, you know, the cells will come and, you know, they eat up the foreign properties that come into the body, and then they're causing some kind of, you know, harm or something. So in order to do that, you know, those, you know, immune functioning cells need to know what is you, what is not you. So if the internal, say, from the part of the, you know, mind and the body as kind of one connected, you know, interconnected one, if our internal conversation is really harsh, you know, it might have an effect in what needs to be attacked. You know, there's something about the kind of what it means. So again, for us to really have harsh words on ourselves, that already is something of distorted expression of the survival of the life force. You know, so when we're doing kind of,
go on.
So there's something about saying something like that, and then there was already something kind of compensatory thing is kind of going on, and then there's a truth hidden. So that means, you know, something what's talking about, you know, I'm just using a screen just to do this, you know, just underneath is kind of trying to be hard and desperate, just behind that part of you that has not been acknowledged because in order to stay safe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always to stay safe, like even kind of avoiding our authenticity. There is I don't know if it was translated in English, but I can't remember the name of the author. There was a book that really became viral in France. It literally, it was like stop being nice, start become real. And I felt like, yeah, thank you. Like it's so true. Like you said, politeness
I
and
think
social rules. And, yeah, it was. I guess
might be a guy who comes from might be the background of the nonviolent communication.
Yeah, probably. I really don't remember, but yeah, it was so impactful. And I mean, I guess every society kind of needs it because we are all built around protection and systems that, as we said, are finding strategies to, you know, calm everyone down. But in France, for example, if we take the term reclaim, literally it's réclamer. And réclamer, to reclaim in French, it's really kind of not a good term. It's kind of asking for what you deserve, but it's kind of shadowy, you know, like it's something that people don't know. Like, oh, you're reclaiming again. I'm like, well, yeah, I am. Like, I need that and I deserve it. But it's, yeah, kind of
that's
not,
like this kind of expressing your boundary, right?
Definitely, yeah. Or I deserve to be respected or seen. And it's funny how in English it's more like the activism and the love in action, really, like I reclaim my right to be seen or to be respected or whatever. And I'm like, wow, thank you. You are inspiring us to more and more kind of lighten the rules and the pressure. And it's beautiful. It's hopeful again.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I thought the French culture is much more expressive than, you know, English, you know, culture.
Depends. Depends on what topics, for sure. And there are always, you know, but it's moving and it's changing, and thanks to the new generations as well, and the social media that sometimes has great benefits. It's changing and shifting a little bit. So
I think it's really, you know, what's in the current is the seeking ways to really truly coexist, isn't it? You know, definitely. We haven't got this, you know, the solution or magic pills for it, but you know, we are kind of learning and what that means and what actually it really feels like. What's the impact, you know, on each of us, you know?
Yeah, as individuals and then as a collective body that we are.
And what kind of hot seat I need to stay in to really, you know, embody that. And you know, hopeful part of me is that you know, we all kind of try and, you know, do something for the next generation, you know, find themselves in a slightly, you know, more kind of balanced place, and as well as kind of passing down, you know, the things that we screwed up.
Definitely, like it's worth looking at it as well. Like, yeah, it's part of the history, and it's okay. I mean, it's done. Like we can't change it, but what do we learn from that, and how do we want to shift and act differently now, or maybe keep doing the same? Like just learn from it, but be aware of it.
Yeah, there's something of the you know, transgenerational trouble, you know, trauma and everything. It takes the individual to do individual's work, but then also the collective to do the kind of collective work, and it takes several generations. And individual ones, if you can be really quite successful in stopping that. And I had a conversation with one of my best girlfriends, and she had a lot of kind of struggle in her life, and you know, in her own way, you know, like, but there's something we're looking at, you know, her children kind of growing up, you know, they're in about around 19 to 22, you know, 23, something like that, and they were great. You know, they're really their emotionality is intact, they are free to express, and you know, they have like just normal up and down and, you know, of lives, but there's, you know, they're kind of thriving with their life force and creativity and a kindness to themselves, and, you know, others are kind of intact, and we kind of looking, you've done a really great job. You stopped the transgenerational trauma.
It doesn't have to repeat itself endlessly. Like,
yeah, it just took a lifetime to really, for that to really manifest. So we were like, let's high five.
Good job, babe. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I felt like a soothing movement, like, oh yeah, that's real. Like, it's not because something or a difficulty that it has to always repeat itself, and we can change the narratives associated with the experiences, and it's real. Like, thank you for sharing that. It's expanding, I guess, for my subconscious mind, even myself, you know, like, you know, remember Aki's friends, like it's possible. Like,
yeah, it's just really lovely. But then in this, if you kind of look really in a small section, so you don't necessarily see that really clearly, especially when you're kind of younger, because you know, just a little bit more.
You're grasping information, so you can't.
Yeah. And also, you know, less span to really see that changes, and then just only like, you know, coming into you know, middle age, kind of 50s, and you know, and then kind of like back like, whoa, and a good job.
Yeah, that's what wisdom means, right? Like getting older or wiser. I never know. Like I'd rather wiser,
just
you know?
feel a little bit more ease, you know, have our own problems, you know, difficulties, but yeah. So and then just somehow there's a kind of collective. You know, I'm doing kind of my bit, but then I see it as this kind of image. I sometimes talk about it like a kind of like a big wave of like a great sort of, you know, trauma work or sort of wellness kind of effort. You know, yogurts might be part of it. Just we all like a little droplet. But you know, you a droplet, I'm droplet, and then everybody who's watching this is kind of droplet, and we are all part of this, you know, the movement of the, you know, bigger ocean, the wave in the ocean. And
totally. Yeah, I appreciate that image, and it reminds me of the internal kind of collaboration as well, which is inherent to health and to life, and we are all not separate inside, and all systems are communicating all the time, and they are working together for us to thrive and to find our growth purpose and journey. So same for the collective, and it loops back to the environment that you touched on earlier. Like, as individual we can do the work, but the environment as well has to mirror us that we can thrive and we can grow and occupy more space. So it's kind of mirroring each other. It's a dynamic process and a relational process. So very interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, every droplet counts.
Definitely.
Like, you know, that's more like a little bit kind of yogic. You are nothing.
Totally. Yeah.
You're everything. Without you, there isn't a world.
Yeah. That's a great paradox, right? Like, you're nothing because you're so tiny, but yet you're so powerful because you are, so you're part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If we take you out of the world does not really exist.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so there's something about that. And so if anything, you know, just getting old and everything, really finding myself really comfortable in that place of being part of this. You know, there's a kind of delight in being part of this kind of collective
movement. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a great message for maybe yoga teachers listening or watching, or, you know, like you don't have to be anyone else. Like, you're you, and it's enough in itself because we are all in this together. So
and then thrive and just do your thing
and have fun, like, and move.
Really successful, or like fall and then hit really hard.
Savor it. Whatever happens.
Yeah, because I am really, you know, I benefit from the time of being kind of graspy, and then there's like a, you know, dense notebooks and, you know, learning and everything that just also be part of who I am.
Who you are today, for sure. Yeah. Well, Aki, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we are heading at the end of this conversation, but before we wrap up, do you have any event or a retreat or anything special coming up these days?
Yes, thank you for asking. I should be really prepared. Well, I have, I don't know when this one goes out, but I have a monthly workshop. I call it a lab, and it's ongoing kind of once a month. It's not a regular Friday, but they're once a month on Fridays. I think in UK it's 2:30, 4:30 in the afternoon, but in France or Europe would be,
an hour, yeah,
later, and it's online and it's recorded. And so this year it's called Yoga Somatic Lab, except I don't do any yoga these days.
Yeah.
Somatic exploration. But this year I am starting 2023, starting probably it's going to take a whole year to get through it. The developmental movement called basic neurocellular patterns.
Yeah.
It's a nervous system pattern. All the movement learning is a nervous system pattern that's known as, but also before the nervous system, there's a cellular consciousness is being piped. So before we had a brain and a spinal cord and then peripheral nerves, we had a cells and we had a functions. So it's a neurocellular patterns. And then we begin with our prevertebral patterns, which is a soft tissue pattern. I did a 60-minute video.
On your IG, right? Yeah. I was like, wow, that sounds fascinating.
It's a bit like Shakespeare in 45 seconds, a bit like that. So if you're interested, you can have a look. And the prevertebral pattern is the internal movement of your soft fluid tissues. And then that supports the later patterns of the vertebral patterns when you have their bone structures. When that's what we are. So it's a really beautiful practice. And if we are in the same room, it'd be really great. But, I just do my best to, explore this together internationally, online environment. And so you'll be really welcome to come and join.
Yeah, and I remember it's recorded as well. So even if you can't attend live, like you have access to it. Beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes 20 people signed up, and then when I open the thing, it's only 7 people. Everybody.
Well, where are they? Yeah, definitely. That's a great option as well.
It's progressive because everything kind of goes on top of another, but you can also jump in because it's like I test it here. It's like, oh, that's really easy or that's really difficult. So that means what support system is missing. So that's an information. Oh, so I just need to do a little bit of this. And then you can go back and explore that. And then when you come back to it, it's easier.
Beautiful. Yeah, the layers. And when you said what you said at the very beginning, you learn what is right for you to learn now. And maybe you'll need it later so you can have access to it and then dive into it again and integrate and embody it. Slowly but surely. Yeah.
And how much it really manifests in a cognitive understanding of things or perception of yourself and perception of others, and how that really affects our relationality. And in terms of the ease and the movement, the pathway is clear. So that means you're strong. Strong is not just a kind of masculine thing, but strong person do not have a pathway from the foot to their center to the head, so there's certain movement, they can't do, they can lift things. So there's something about the different ways of kind of feeling empowered and strong.
Well, yeah, it seems very valuable and very kind of adaptable as well to our individuality in the world. Like, how do you bring that into your daily life as well? And as you said, in the cognitive, because we need it as well. I mean, there is not only like the body and again fragmenting ourselves. No, it's the whole process. So how do you kind of take this psychoeducation into the body and then from the body to the psyche? It's relational again. So I think
and being in contact with that sense of desire. And then later on, I don't have the actual dates and venue yet, but later on, instead of doing a residential training that I did every year, I am hoping to do more like spread over several weekends.
Along the year?
Yeah, later in the year, maybe. I run this 8-day residential training that I'm going to spread over several weekends, not residential, but that's in UK. I'll come anyway if you.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, well, you know, it's not that far. I mean, it's like a few hours by plane. So yeah, definitely.
If somebody can, you know, offer me something and enough people wants to do it, I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make sure to write all the links in the show notes for sure.
Right. Thank you very much, Elisa. Really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it was such a pleasure. I felt really enthusiastic and kind of resonating with your wisdom and knowledge as well, and the vision that you can have about all of these three, you know, yoga, somatics, and therapy. So very enriching. Thank you.
Right, well, thank you. You're a wonderful listener and wonderfully inviting. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching or listening, whatever. And we'll see you in the next very soon. Bye-bye.